Alrighty, Uncle Roddus here again with yet another video of recent records. New Zealand Music Month is well and truly over, although I still haven't posted all of the videos. There's still a video to go up. But the New Zealand music is still flowing in from purchases that I've made during that month, which is slowly coming in the mail, plus some other finds. I had two oh my god moments in the record shops over the last week. First one is playing in the background at the moment. I was at I wouldn't really call it a concert. It was 2 evenings of sound art, noise, experimental type music. It's a bit like the Lines of Flight stuff that I went to. As a matter of fact, there were a couple of acts from the Lines of Flight in Dunedin that I saw in April that were at this thing. It's the Cantabrian Sonic Arts Society or something to that effect. They were celebrating 10 years of being active, and although they have downscaled their operations somewhat over the last couple of years due to funding cuts, because they were getting some funding from the local council for arts. Yeah, they lost their original venue because of that, and anyway, they are actually have a wee room or a biggish room next to the dark room and Galaxy Records. And on the second night of the presentations, Dave from Galaxy Records was there, and he's actually a member of the society as well. And I had a chat to him, and I was asking him about the Delaney Davidson record that he had in his shelf that I'd seen, and was quite keen to have a look at that. Anyway, so he opened the shop up for me to go and have a look, and lo and behold, right at the front of the pile was this, and this was a wow moment. Krypton 10, this is called. This is Christchurch, 1981 to 1987. It's a double LP, and that's what's playing in the background. It is, yeah, it's something I never expected to see in the wild. I mean, I know there was copies available on Discogs, and I mean, it's not ultra rare or ultra expensive, although I did pay reasonably good money for it. It was actually dropped into the shop recently by one of the guys, I think, who's on the record. So anyway, this is a compilation on Unwanked, which is a German label, which is basically specialising in really obscure Christchurch music, from the early 80s especially. Most of the bands on here are very lo-fi, amateur recordings of recordings made in lounges and rehearsal rooms on tapes. Yeah, it's very lo-fi, although the track you've heard and this track aren't so bad, but some of them are a bit weird. And it was a very incestuous, underground and pretty obscure scene. A lot of the guys turn up in the same bands, or turn up in different bands, the same names, keep appearing in different bands. It actually explained a lot to me about the XMen and where they came and where they fitted into the scene, because as a matter of fact, they've got 2 tracks on this side of this record which they're the longest tracks at the end. The XMen I talked about recently, as I've just discovered their music, even though I'd known about them. Some of the names on here are vaguely familiar. They Were Expendable was one I know, and Bill Dorene's Bilderbergers. So Bill Dorene I've talked about before, and I've seen him live recently, and he's been around for years. But this, interesting enough, I'm listening to this music. I think this is a fantastic compilation. I mean, it is. It's pretty obscure. It's very lo-fi. It's pretty amateur, but there's some great stuff happening on the record, and some really interesting music. To be honest, I mean, I knew none of these bands back in the day. I mean, this was, this is my mid to late teens period and very early 20s, and I was just really getting into music and starting to get into live music. So sort of missed the scene a wee bit. but probably wouldn't have got into it in a big way myself anyway. That sort of music I probably wouldn't have liked that much back then. And I was right into my punk and new wave and other things. But really pleased to have that. Not something you're going to see around a lot. And the other, well, actually two wow moments actually almost, was I had, what was I doing in town? I was in town for some reason anyway, looking through the bins at Penny Lane. Wasn't really expecting to buy anything, but you know how it goes. Anyway, I came across this, and I mean the cover doesn't tell you much, but I had a look at the back of it, and it turns out that it's a record by a band called A Handful of Dust. So more New Zealand stuff. This is a 1993 release on Twisted Village, distributed by Forced Exposure. A Handful of Dust are Alistair Galbraith and Bruce Russell, and Bruce Russell was actually at the Oracle event that I was just briefly talking about before, and the Lines of Flight. Very experimental noise, weirdness. Originally was recorded in 1992 and 93, and yeah, part of a corpus hermeticum. Corpus hermeticum was actually a kind of record label per se that Bruce Russell was running, probably releasing more cassettes and CDRs. I'm not sure if this actually ever had a release on any other format. It's only shown as, I think it's only shown as vinyl on Discogs. This was their first album. They did quite a few other recordings. Not all of them are on vinyl. My wife can't stand it. She hated it. It's kind of, I thought of Nurse with Wound when I first heard it, the first couple of listens. I think it's fantastic. I really, really enjoy it. So yeah, don't see this stuff around much, even in New Zealand. Very underground. Also that day I happened to come across this one here. This is something completely different. The 1860 Band on Ode Records, featuring a very young Roger Fox. Roger Fox is a big band jazz leader here in New Zealand, whose music is kind of swinging, mainstreamy jazz. It's okay, I've got a couple of his records. This is probably one of the best things he did. This is reasonably rare. Unfortunately, the record's in fairly bad condition. There's a lot of surface noise, and I haven't been able to clean it yet because my cleaning machine's broken. But instead of paying $100 for it like you probably normally would, I only paid $30 for it. In the mail today came this one, which I ordered sort of about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Actually even longer than that. It took quite a while to get here. Had to get it from overseas. Ridiculous, isn't it? New Zealand music, Chaos Manor. The band is called the Futurians. I'd heard a track on this a couple of times on Chris Walker's shows, the track on side 2. Very long krautrock sort of jam. But yeah, this is very lo-fi as well. It's interesting actually getting into New Zealand music. Here is me spending what, $4,500 on a turntable plus a $1,500 cartridge, and I'm listening to really lo-fi recordings. Another band, New Zealand band that I picked that arrived today, Scorched Earth Policy. Scorched Earth Policy are related to bands like the Terminals, who I've spoken about before, and the Victor Dimish band, which I showed recently, and the Dark Matter, which is a recent band that's got Steve Kogle in it. Steve Kogle's not on this, although one of his songs is, but a couple of the other fellas, Peter Stapleton, Mick Alvarado, and someone else, whose name's eluding me, play on this record. Another lo-fi, post-punk, underground sort of band. Had 2 EPs, which is what this is. This is a compilation reissue on Stilt Breeze. Yes, it is. Who are doing a lot of New Zealand, really old New Zealand music. This is 2 EPs, one on each side, 7 songs on each. that were released in the mid-80s on Flying Nun, which I suspect are very, very hard to get. Scorched Earth Policy's name was familiar to me as a Christchurch band, but was one that I'd never actually heard their music that I knew about, although there is a couple of tracks on there that I do recognise. Another male arrival this week. Well, actually most of these are now male arrivals. This is a band called Lamp of the Universe, and this is nice gatefold, wonderful packaging, great psychedelic sort of thing. This is very Pink Floyd. This has got a long atmospheric jams with a real Floydian feel to it. I have another Lamp of, this is the latest album that he's put out. He's actually, Lamp of the Universe has actually got quite a lot of records out, been going for 15 odd years or more. The guy Craig Williamson up in the North Island way, he is the main protagonist in this band. He also has a band called Datura, which has 2 albums out, one of which I have. And his best band, I think, is called Arc of Ascent, who have 3 albums out, one just been released recently. I actually have his first album on the way in the mail. Arc of Ascent's a lot heavier psychedelic jam music, yeah, really, really cool. Okay, what else we got? So, Elvis Harding, I've shown her first album. This is her latest album, just been released. I've spoken of her. I said I saw her live here in Christchurch not that long ago, and she's absolutely mind-blowing live. This new album is a lot different. Her first album is a fairly much a straight sort of folk album that she just sings with an acoustic guitar. There's a band on this. She's doing a lot more variety, but she's also doing a lot more with her voice. Sometimes it can be very high pitched. Yeah, I'm not sure if I quite like her when she sings like that. It does have Horizon on side 2, which is the track that absolutely blew me away. This is on 4AD Records, actually, surprisingly enough. This is just the plain black vinyl version. There was a coloured vinyl version released, I think, with an extra 7-inch single. And also new out, another Christchurch band. And Aldous is from Christchurch Way, from Littleton. The Terminals album Antiseptic. This has just arrived the last week or so. The Terminals, I showed a record of theirs recently. It was a compilation of stuff. They were around in the early 80s or mid to late 80s, sort of, who they evolved out of the Victor Dimish band. And yeah, Mick Alvarado and Peter Stapleton are on this record. They are also in that Scorched Earth Policy record that I showed. So this was recorded at the, what's the name of it? Anteroom at Port Chalmers, which is where we saw two of the evenings of the Lines of Flight. It's pretty lo-fi. I've listened to it a couple of times. Yeah, I don't like it as much as the other album I've got with the compilation album, but yeah, I still like it, but I need to listen to it some more. But it is a little bit lo-fi. It's not a particularly great place to record a record, to be honest, I would imagine. It's just a really shitty old hall. And finally, the one that I was looking for in Galaxy Records, when I found that this one here, what's it called? The Krypton Teams compilation. Delaney Davidson, another one of his ones. Swim Down Low? Yeah, Swim Down Low. From 2000, doesn't say. He's released quite a lot of records. He's got about 8 records out now, I suppose. This is sort of about the middle of his discography. Everything I've heard from Delaney is awesome. As a matter of fact, there was a bloody documentary being shown in town tonight. I didn't know about it, I only just found out about it tonight, and it's already gone and been and done. But Delaney here, he's great. Americana, blues, country, hybrid. Yeah, really, really awesome talent, and everything I've heard of his has been great. So I have like 4 of his albums now, so still halfway through the discography. So there's another bunch of New Zealand music that has arrived in the last week. So yeah, a couple of really good finds. I'm really pleased with this compilation I know, as you can hear, it's pretty lo-fi. It's pretty out there. Not everybody's cup of tea, but it's a real slab of hometown history, musical history. So I'm really pleased to have it. And there are some other compilations I'd like to get my hands on as well, actually, just to help round out the New Zealand, the Christchurch thing. So most of this New Zealand music I'm collecting is South Island music, more than the North Island, especially the older stuff. I mean, South Island is the home of Flying Nun and the Dunedin sound. Flying Nun was formed in Christchurch, so Dunedin and Christchurch are intricately linked in the history of New Zealand music. Yeah, with Flying Nun being formed in Christchurch originally, and the Clean coming up to Christchurch and releasing their first, recording and releasing, I think, their first single here in Christchurch on Flying Nun before heading back to Dunedin. But they were, of course, originally from Dunedin. And bands like the Bats, who are one of them was originally in the Clean, but he came up to Christchurch and he formed the Bats in Christchurch, so they are pretty much a Christchurch band. So, alright, that's enough of me dribbling on. Hope you enjoyed the video. I have something like another 13 records in the mail, which should be here within the next 3 to 4 weeks. All of them have been ordered during New Zealand Music Month and are all New Zealand music. But they're all coming from Europe and America and stuff like that. So even Australia, like the biggest bunch of them is coming from Australia, and the postage time from Australia is really quite slow. It's really surprised me, actually. I think that 2 records arrived today from Australia. Took 10 days just to get from Australia. I mean, they just cross the pond, don't they? Okay, right, that's enough. That's the XMen droning away in the background there.